everybody, this is Sabrina. Welcome back to my channel. I will be doing a update on my reading journal. I will update for May. Last month I had a subscriber ask me to read the books that I read and also the 12 Friends books. At least that's what I understood from the comment. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this video by just reading off the books that I read. That way you know which ones I read, and then I will dive into the voiceover and putting together all the various pieces. I read 15 books and listened to quite a few of them. So I started off with Dreamland, which was a recommended book. 7 Days in June. Let me bring this closer. Dreamland, that was a difficult book to read. 7 Days in June, I listened to this book and it was incredible. These two I found because of the Rate the Romance challenge, and I really enjoyed them, part 1 and part 2. This was another book recommended to me. I listened to it, which was really a good choice because the narrator did a fantastic job bringing the main character to life. Then I read a graphic novel just for a little break, Squished. Really enjoyed it, and so did my daughter. Winter House. I read this book and then passed it along to my son, so that was really awesome for him to enjoy this book. The House Across the Lake. I read this because of Heba's book club. I will go ahead and link that, but I did not really care for this book. It was a little out there as far as my opinion. So The House Across the Lake. Practice Makes Perfect. Listened to this on audio and it was incredible. It's actually my favorite book for the month. Forever Never is a Rate the Romance book that I found. The Maid, I listened to that book. The Measure, It's One of Us. Listen to this. And if you guys have been around here a while, you know that I lost this book. Like, I ran out of time to finish it, and it's 31 hours, and I actually got it back and finished it. So I finished this book, and it was incredible. Another recommended book to me, so I'm so glad I finally conquered a Stephen King book. The last one was this book. I didn't think I was gonna get this book in time, but I did, and it was for Read Around the USA. And then so real quick, I will also read you the recommended books for 12 Books, 12 Friends. I read 3 this month. So I have Bookends by Jane Green, 84 Charing Cross Road, Dreamland, How to Stop Time, Flawless, Good Girl Complex, The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, saving that for October, Sugar Daddy, the 11/22/63, Virgin River, They Never Learn, and We Were the Lucky Ones. So those are the 12 books that were recommended, and I read 3 this month. So that is what I read. That is the challenge books, and I'm excited to dive in and add in my year of books and just talk about all things books and what I read in May. So I hope that you enjoy. All right, let's do the voiceover. So my first step is always to add in my little tiny books that I make using my Cameo. I don't even know what size they are, but they are very small. And I have a template on one of my videos with like a January through April walkthrough. There's like a download, and then you can make your own year of books. So I just make those and then cut them out on my Silhouette. And like I said in the intro video, it was a really fantastic month of books, 15. And I also read and listened to a lot of thrillers, way more than I usually do. And I've actually noticed that I enjoy thrillers more when I listen to them. I don't know. It's just something that I've noticed, but I think it was like 4 or 5 thrillers that I listened to this month. And I am gonna continue with adding in the books. I use my blue glue glue pen, and I have them all done now, and I can move on to the next page. And I counted it to make sure it was 15, and it was. So I thought I had measured this correctly, but I did not. And this book, Practice Makes Perfect, is my favorite for May, and I didn't measure it. So I tried trimming it a little bit, but it's still not going to fit. So for right now, I just slipped it underneath the cut file, and then I can always just go back next month and fix it. That's fine. I also lost the May stamp that I use, so that's kind of a bummer because I'm going to need that for the Goodreads challenge. So a little frustrating, but like I said, I can go back next month and fix it if I find that stamp. So I am filling in the books, and I think I've said this before, but one of the things that I do that I guess is kind of a quirky thing of mine, I add the books and place them based on the width of the book that is stamped there. So like if the book is a thicker book, like the measure, I'll make sure that I write the measure on a bigger book spine. I don't know, it's just something that I prefer to do. And if like it's a smaller, slim stamped book, then I will write in the title there for the smaller book, like Squished. And I'm also going to have to go on to the second page already in May, which is crazy. So I don't even know if this shelf is going to hold up till the end of the year. I'm going to have to probably go back and count it out and see, and then figure out what I can do if I'm going to add something to it. And that way I can, have some more room. I can't believe how much I'm listening to books and just having some really good reading months. So now I'm filling in 15 squares with a yellow marker, and just like I said for the favorites, I need the small May stamp to fill out or stamp the small boxes. And I don't have it. So I'll have to look around my craft space and figure out where on earth it went, and then I can go ahead and fill that in. I also just stamped the May by hand because it wasn't working with my block, and it didn't turn out so great, but whatever. Let's just keep moving forward. That's always the goal, right? So yeah, there's 3 boxes that I need to use that small May stamp, so I'll have to look around and see if I can find that. Next up is these 2023 goals. I filled in another box for the 100 books. I didn't actually take my count of Goodreads, but I know that I'm like up to 60 something. And I also filled in a graphic novel spot and a middle grade spot. I did read a few Goodreads nominees or award winners, but I only filled in 1 box. I need to be better about remembering which ones kind of qualify for that category. For the A to Z, I added M, the measure, and O, an optimist's guide to heartbreak, plus P, practice makes perfect. And like I've said before, I only add like the books that I really love, so that's why my alphabet looks kind of empty, but it's probably not empty. I'm just being picky about which books I put in for the alphabet. Now I am flipping back to the year of books so that way I can see which categories I need to add the tally marks for. So I have a bunch that I added to mystery, several to young adult, and also romance. So lots of different variety of books. And this month, the Read Around the USA, I read The Overnight Guest, which was a thriller, and that took place in Iowa. I wanted to add where it was from, like I had for January, February, and March. And so I just wrote it on the side since I didn't have a lot of room. That's unfortunate that I didn't have a lot of room, but that's okay. What can you do? Now I'm going to move on to Rate the Romance, and I read a ton of the romance books this month because I did audiobooks as well. So I'm very excited that I might actually completely fill out this bingo card, which has never happened, and I think this is my 3rd year of doing this challenge, I think. So the first book that I read for the challenge was a romantic suspense. which was Forever Never. Loved that. I also listened to 7 Days in June for the number in the title. And then there was another category that says Hero is a Virgin. So I have Pessimist Guide to Love, which was part 2. And then a yellow cover was part 1, An Optimist Guide to Heartbreak. I also listened to Practice Makes Perfect, and I think that one is going to qualify for the surname, I think. But I forgot to print that book out, so I'll just wait till next month to go ahead and add that book in if it works. Okay, so I'm continuing on with these books, and now I need to just add in the rating. I did not glue down Forever Never very well, so I'm going to have to add some more adhesive to that. And I just use a little star to add in my rating and a piece of scratch paper if I don't want to stamp a full star. So really enjoying all these different romances that I'm reading, and romance is just a favorite of mine, and I think it always will be. I also just finished another romance audio, Big Duke Energy, and the narrators were incredible. They did such a great job. I loved it. So now I'm going to do the 12 books, 12 friends, and like I already mentioned, I've read 3 of those this month, Dreamland, and then the 11/22, 63, and How to Stop Time. Dreamland was the only one that I read a physical copy, and that book was definitely difficult to read. It has to do with teenagers and abuse. So, and I don't think that that gives away much, but it was definitely a tough book to read. All right, we're going to build the calendar for May, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. That way I can get in all the books, and it's going to come out looking awesome. It is. I did a great job counting my boxes. If you watched my journaling video, you know that I don't really count when I make my journaling spreads, but with the book journal, I feel like I have to count my dots because I want to make sure that I have everything that looks the same and also just enough room to write in all of my books because I am reading so much. I also decided to use a really large die cut that I had shown you guys in the beginning of the year when I was setting up my journal. It's like a girl in a teacup, and you'll see that in a little bit. But I wanted to use that one as my main die cut for this month. It had some really pretty colors. I always just write in the days of the week. That makes it so much easier. And I also picked my colors ahead of time based on this die cut. I mentioned that last month that I don't want to get a color scheme that I don't like because I was running into that last month. I also just use a Tombow highlighter to do a little circle in the top right corner for my date and just use my pen to write in the day. I'm going to go ahead and add in my die cuts. You can see I have Hello, I'm Reading, and then the girl teacup, girl in a teacup, and then a few open face books. And I'm going to use this big, huge yellow washi tape. I thought that would be fun to use, something bold and a washi tape that I haven't used before. Normally I stick to the grid washi tapes. I'm also going to use the same alphabet that I used in March. In April I used a different one, so I wanted to go back and use the same one for May. And I got the letters like a little wonky, and once I noticed that A was a little lower than M, I decided to make it a pattern. So M is up, A is down, and Y is up. So now it makes a pattern, and now it looks kind of intentional. I glued down the Hello, I'm Reading and added in 15 for the number of books. And I also like to decorate these monthly spreads with a few different stamped sentiments. And I'm excited to use some red because of the teacup. So I stamped Bibliotherapy, Let's Get Lit. And later on, I will add a open-faced book. I stamped a stack of books that I think said something booklet or something like that, but I didn't like it, and I knew that I was going to stamp some yellow flowers, so I just went back, grabbed some grid paper, and stamped the stamped phrase on the paper, cut it out, and then adhered it right on top that yellow stamped that I messed up on, that I didn't want. So now that I have that all fixed, I can go ahead and add in the leaves. I wanted to add in a few of those from an Ali Edwards stamp set and also some flowers. That way it carries the theme from the teacup. And also I just love stamping flowers. It's so easy. And I'm just gonna layer in the yellow flower next and also the open-faced book. My next step is going to be adding in the book dates that I read, so I need to just grab my iPad. I have this really old iPad, well, at least by Apple standards. It's like a dinosaur. So I just grabbed that, and that's the one that I usually use to listen to my audiobooks. And I will load up Goodreads, and that way I can see which date that I read my books. It's just a little tricky because Goodreads changed their website. So now it's like I have to open each book in a new tab and change my review. That way I can see the actual dates that I read the books. I am going to put the audiobooks kind of towards the bottom line of the calendar and also add an A. And then, of course, if the book goes into the next week, I just put an arrow and then brackets to indicate that those were the days that I read it. And of course, there was books that took me longer to read, like The Measure, because that was a huge book, but it was definitely worth it. That was a fantastic book. I loved it. And I have several audiobooks that kind of overlap, but it's more that I love audiobooks, and so I just grab one right after I finish the other one. Like right now I'm listening to The Dutch House, and it's all right. I'm not like too crazy about it. I'd love to know what audiobooks you are enjoying right now. And I'm also reading Demon Copperhead, which is quite a big book as well. So I'd love to know if you've read that book and if you enjoyed it. I am tackling that beast of a book, which has been hard. It's been busy around here with my birthday and my son's graduation, so I have not had as much time to read. I've now moved on to make all the stats page, and I took a really thick green washi and just cut a small strip. It's totally crooked and probably jagged, but whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and add it. I also have my books, and it's going to literally be books from the very top of the page all the way to the bottom. And I had to shrink them down just a little bit. So they start out at 1 by 1.5 inches. And I shrink them down to like 85%. That way I can fit them all on one page. In March, I did a flip out, and I might do that again for June. Maybe if June winds up being a good reading month. So far, not so much, but you know, we're only 7 days in, so it could change. But depending on how many I read, I just want to make sure that I get them all on this one page for now. So that's why I have to shrink them down, and I have to like add them one at a time because I want to make sure I can fit the my rating. And then the book is kind of centered in the middle of that stamped phrase. So that's why the books aren't necessarily like touching each other, because that stamp needs to have a little bit more room. And I also shrink down the books a little bit so that way I can have a spot down at the bottom to add my overall rating of the books. So now I'm going to work on the left-hand side page, and I'll come back later and fill in my ratings. Again, I use the Carrie Bradford Iris stamp set to stamp all the stats, which is a Carrie Bradford stamp set. And the way that I make my pages is I start from the bottom up. That way I can get in everything that I want to include. So I start with pages, and I decided last month that I would add in the pages of the audiobooks. I could have added the difference. I probably should have added in the difference. I think last month I did the difference. This month I did just the audio book pages that it told me on Storygraph. But either way, it just shows that there's a difference. So my total was 5,712, but the audio was 2,797. So that way I can see that there is a little bit of a difference because of how much I listen to. The next step will be adding in the genres, and I think I added too many lines of genres. I usually only add 2, but this time I did 3, and I just added in basically every single genre of what I read. So I had romance, thriller, dystopia, graphic novel, middle grade, mystery, fantasy, historical, and science fiction. So the whole wide range of different genres that I read, and I just love it. I love reading, and I think you guys know that. Okay, the next one is hours listened to. I added that last month as well. I am going to just use the numbers in the stamp set to add in all my different numbers, and the total number of hours was 94.15, so a really good month of audiobooks. The next is going to be adding 3 special categories where I just pick, you know, different things that I want to highlight for the month, or like my Goodreads challenge, what's my number? Or this month I chose thriller, like how many thrillers did I read? How many books did I read from the 3 Friends challenge? And how many books did I love? So I have 5 thrillers, 3 Friends books, and 4 that I absolutely loved. So I'll go ahead and stamp those, and then I'll move on to the next part, which is adding in the pie graph. And the reason I said earlier that I added 1 line too much on the genres, and maybe the yellow tape was too thick, is because my pie graph, or my circle, is touching the stats word, which has never happened before. So obviously I had that extra line and extra thick washi. In the end, it's all going to turn out fine, but next month, I want to be kind of aware of that. I also drew really tiny boxes over on the right-hand side. Not necessarily intentional, but, you know, they're tiny numbers that I'm stamping, so it will work. But those little boxes in the right corner are for paper, Kindle, and audio. So I have 5 paper, 3 Kindle, and 7 audio. So it's almost like 50-50 for me as far as audio and physical books. Next up is the pie chart. I already have my colors picked out, so I'm very excited about that, and I don't have to mess with a million different colors like I did last month. Last month, I put a color down and I really didn't like it. It was like too bubblegum-ish, if I remember right. So I just had to cover it up with another piece of scratch paper. So I am aiming for 6 categories, but when I get to number 5, I realize that I'm going to have to split the last chunk into 2. So I'm going to wind up with 7 categories, which I don't think I've ever done either, but like I said a little bit ago, I do read a lot of different genres, so it's not surprising to me that I have such a varied, what's it called? Pie chart. There you go. A varied pie chart. So once I have it all drawn in pencil, I can then go back and outline it with my black pen and then use my eraser to erase the pencil marks. The biggest chunk this month is going to be emotional, which I was not surprised, but a little surprised, because the next one is mysterious. So as I was watching this over the month, I thought for sure mysterious might get the biggest, but it was emotional. And I think that's like my main one every month. I'd have to go back and check, but emotional, I read a lot of emotional books, I guess. Next one, like I said, is mysterious. Then I'm going to do red is tense. Then I'll have like a pinkish color, and that will be reflective. I'm going to throw in some green, and green's going to be lighthearted. And then yellow is dark, which I think is funny. I picked a happy color for the little pie slice that is dark. And that's where I had to split up and add a 7th category. So I got dark for yellow, and then I'll do another green for just the other section of my pie chart. I'm going to also go back over to the right hand side and add my ratings. So Dreamland got a 4 out of 5, 7 days in June got a 5 stars. The Optimist and Pessimist, those were both like 4.25. How to Stop Time, that was like a 4. Squished, I loved it. Winter House, loved it. 3 stars for The House Across the Lake. Practice Makes Perfect was a 5. The Maid got like a 4 1/4. The Measure got 5 stars, and then It's One of Us got 4, and 11/22/63 got 5, and The Overnight Guest got like 4 1/4. So really great books this month, and the only one that I was disappointed with was The House Across the Lake, and also kind of How to Stop Time. I mean, that was just a really weird, strange book, but I'm glad that I listened to it instead of reading it. I made a little section down at the bottom for my average rating, which was 4.23. I'll finish this spread with the same stamping that I did on the calendar, with the green leaf, yellow flower, and also the open page book in just 3 different spots. And then I'm going to flip to the next page, and I decided to go ahead and highlight my books. So yellow is the physical books, and a pinkish color is the audiobooks. And the pink color wound up not being so pink, so that's okay. But I'm glad it's not like overwhelmingly bright colors. So that's kind of why I chose those colors. And then I'll flip and show you how it came all together. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. I would love a thumbs up or a subscribe if you are new to my channel. Have a great day. Bye.